Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today I'm going to be attaching a piece of wood to a shaft or a shank, and this one here I did last night. It's the wood spirit that I've had hanging off my storage rack over there for quite a while now, from when I first shaped it. I did say I was going to use it as a topper, and that's what it's going to be now. It's going to be a topper to a staff I'm building. But I used the threaded bar method on that, which is a valid method. Some people don't like to use it or don't prefer to use it. I myself have traditionally used the peg method myself, but I have adopted this for basically speed, convenience and ease of doing. But today I'm going to be doing two pegged methods to attach a lump of hardwood on top of a shank, which I'm going to work down to the desired effect that I want. But before I do the shaping, I just want to attach it. So I'm going to bring you along and we'll do a pegged method of attaching a topper. Right then, I've got my drill bit that I'm going to use to create the hole. I always do the hole first. You don't have to, but all my dimensions and measurements for the peg will initially come from the hole I've actually created. And as you can see, I've got this block of wood, and I'm going to drill into the bottom piece with this one and this drill bit to a determined depth that I want to actually drill to. I'm going to look at it and work out what's going to give me the strongest joint and how much wood I can get away with taking at a sensible amount. I don't want the peg to be too long, but I obviously don't want it to be too short. It needs to have some grip and purchase, and also it to avoid any breakages or snaps. And obviously too big a hole will use too much epoxy or whatever method you're going to attach that peg into your hole. Yeah, so first thing for us is to get some holes drilled in these bits of wood. Right, I've looked at my wood and I've done some rough calculations and measurements just by eye, just by looking at it. And I want my drill bit to sink about that far. And you can see once I'm drilled down to that line there on the masking tape, I'm going to consider myself I've gone as far as I want to go. You don't have to go to this deep. You could go shallower. It's all dependent on what you presume that you need for the job in question. So when I drill, I'm aiming for that top part of the masking tape, and that is true and the same with this piece here. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do now. Get that drilled out. Get it locked in so there's no movement. I've learnt a big lesson there. Some of you may know what I'm talking about. Alright, let's get this drill bit in. Now, my injury was the result of my drill bit or drill locking and jamming up, snapping the drill bit, and the drill flying back and hitting me across the side of the face or just above the bridge of the nose. I don't intend to make that same mistake again. Slow, steady, and keep the drill going in at a very, very 90-degree angle. I'm not moving it off sideways in any way, shape or form. I will be going straight down in the wood like that with no veering off either way. Right, let's get on with this. Find the centre bit. Yet again, you can see I'm doing all this by eye. If you had a more technical piece of work, you may have to do measurements. And there you go. That's the hole there. Just going to clean all this up and then we'll have a little look at it. So here's my two shanks, or sticks, whichever word you want to use. And they're lovely pieces of wood in their own right. They have been cut square to the top to give me the ability, when I do seat the top of the peg in, I'm not dealing with uneven surfaces. So that's been squared. They're good to go. The holes have been cleaned out, and for each individual stick I will do the measurements separate. There could be discrepancies between the depth of holes, so I'm not going to get my measurements mixed up. This one here will go over there, and that will stay with that one, and that topper will stay with this one till they're seated in epoxied. Like I said, there could be discrepancies in the depth of the hole, which could make things go a little bit or become a little bit awkward. So let's crack on to the next stage. That is to measure the depth of that hole running from the top down inside to the length of the peg I got to start creating on this shank. Right, so basically I want to find the bottom of this hole. All I've got is I think it's a 4-inch nail. I'm putting down inside. I've just got my finger there on the actual nail, bring it out. That is the depth I'm going to go. I'm going to transfer that to the shank. As you can see, there's nothing too technical about it. I'm just going to mark it with a marker pen. There. And you can see my line marked on that actual shank. Next thing I'm going to do is get some tape, and I'm going to create my first cut line. And I'm just going to place this on that line, and this will give me a square cutting edge to go to or work from. As you can see, I'm adjusting it. There. So that tape is going to be my first cut line, or my cut stop. And basically I'm going to cut into that, and that will be what stops me splintering any of the good wood beyond the peg itself. All I'm going to be doing is taking down to that cut stop mark. Right, I've got a piece of tracing paper. This isn't strictly necessary to do. There is other methods you could use, but quite simply I'm just placing it over there, and I'm going to rough out roughly the diameter of the hole. Like I said, Not strictly, you don't have to do that. The reason why I've done that, if you can see it, is that I can put that on my shank and I can actually now determine the best seating position for me to cut that hole. If that makes any sense. You can see I'm transferring it on top of the shank. I'm going to trace it to give me the outline. The beauty of doing it on tracing paper is I can move that, so I can do that peg anywhere I want on that shank, depending on good pieces of wood, or possibly I'm trying to avoid it going to one side or the other. But for me, I think dead centre is going to be about right, and it offers me a visual aid to start taking those first bits of wood off. Like I said, this isn't strictly necessary. So as you can see, I've got a circle which gives me an indication, like I just explained, where I'm going to start the cuts. Obviously, I will have to whittle it down at some point and use a very fine file, but I can remove the bulk of the wood. And as you can see, that centre black piece is going to be the top of the peg. That white outer circle of clear wood, that's the wood I'm looking to remove. Right, so to create the peg, it's pretty much the bare minimum of tools. I've got a fine file, a coping saw, my bushcraft knife, which has quite a fine edge on it to be fair, and a grandfather's pocket knife, just to do the intricate little bits of cutting, and a wooden hammer. Everything will become apparent in a minute, but as you can see, it's the bare minimum of tools. Right then, with my coping saw, I'm going to create a cut all the way along that top mark, which indicates the depth of the hole. And I'm going to go down inside of it as thick as the blade. The blade kind of represents almost the depth, or how far in I've got to whittle down to create the peg in any case. So yeah, and so very carefully following that masking tape line, let's start cutting. I've already drifted off a little bit. The squarer and neater you can start doing things from this point on, the easier it will be to try and create a good joint. Trying to create the good joint by taking bits of wood off, like very small slithers, to create the seat between the shank and the head of the topper later on, can be greatly reduced by the amount of accuracy that you do your cutting at this point. Because I'm doing this with just one eye at the moment. There. So what I have there, as you can see, I've created a nice cut to the depth of that blade all the way around. And the depth I've gone down to roughly translates to that white mark before I get to the peg. So now I've got to remove some of this wood. You can do it pretty much as several different methods. You can whittle it down with just a penknife, just whittling it down. You could use a file of some description, or you can actually get a knife and use it almost like a chisel going down through the wood. So I'll demonstrate how I'm going to do it. Right, I'm just locking it in my knees here. Sorry about the light. I've got 1 minute I haven't got no light. It's all gloomy in the workshop. And the next minute I've got too much light. What I'm going to do is just place my bushcraft knife over the piece I want to take off like this. And basically what I'm doing is, it's almost like battening. There, just taking the slivers off. I'll let you have a look here at this direction. You can see I'm battening pieces of wood off. You see that slither coming off? It's quite simply because this technique possibly is the one I would say if you're starting out doing pegs, use a file or a penknife just to slowly whittle. This is a lot faster. I will eventually have to go to a file, but there's a lot more potential for it to go wrong. Right, let me take it down to the cut mark. Right, this will demonstrate the importance of that cut mark. As you can see, as it's coming down here, it's run against the cut stop. If I pull that away, you'll be able to see it hasn't splintered down into the actual good bit of shank I'm trying to save. You can possibly see a small little step there. And it's doing its job. Right, I'm going to continue going right the way around now. It's a laborious job. From the point of view, you've got to be careful. You don't want to get this far and have a mistake. You can see I've taken a nice little piece of wood off there. And yet again, if I bring it up, can I get that to focus? You can see it hasn't gone past the stop. So I think you get the drift. I'm going to continue going around this shank now and I'll bring you back in a minute. Right, you might be able to see I've been able to arrive at this here, and as you can see it looks pretty rough, but I've extracted a lot of wood straight out of that peg pretty fast by using that method you've just been watching me, take it off, battening off those big chunks. But now I've removed the biggest portion, I'm going to go down to just a grandfather's pocket knife. Right, with this pocket knife now, all I'm going to do is gently start taking away, take some of the edges. I'm going to try and round it off a little bit. Very careful. Remember, taking away too much wood isn't the goal here. This peg really needs to be tight to the point it has some bearing on the actual topper. As you can see, I'm just taking little slithers off each time. And if I get the main block and I'm just putting it up, I can see how much more I've got to take off. And you'll start to get to the point now, you'll be continually taking wood off and just bringing the block or your piece of wood that you're trying to attach as a topper, marrying it up, and from here on it will be test and adjust. You'll work the wood, you'll bring it up, put it on and test it and take it away and see where you have to make your cuts and adjustments. I'm still a fair way off. I could have carried on battening a little bit longer, but I've got a little bit of time and I'm in no rush. I've got to take things easy. So I'm just going to gently sit here whittling away. And as you can see, if the sun wasn't quite so strong, all I'm doing with this knife is removing the smallest pieces of wood like this. You do need sharp knives when you're doing this kind of technical whittling. And now I'm coming back up to the stop mark. I am cutting back on myself, so I'm being extremely careful. As you can see, I'm just bringing it up like this. I've choked the blade right down, and my fingers are around the whole knife, and I'm trying to keep them out of the blade. Remember safety, guys, with knives. I know some people might be laughing me talking about safety, but please, I've already had an accident while stick making. Don't you guys do it. As you can see, I'm taking off bits more where I think I need to take them off. I can see I got a flat spot instantly there I've got to get rid of. Alright. Right, I'm going to continue doing this. And I'll bring you back. Now, I do 95% of all my hiking sticks are one-piece items. Somebody whose stick profession or crafting journey, which they put toppers on of whatever description, doing something like this is their bread and butter. So they get it done really fast and to a high degree of accuracy in short order. Somebody like me, who, like I said, 95% of my sticks don't have toppers. So when I do them, it takes me that little bit longer. But I have a little bit more time on my hands. So I'm just going to take things easy and not mess it up. Now we're getting to this point. Right then. You can see I'm kind of getting the top of it to that point. It's tight when it's on there now. Now I'm going to be working this wood down to the diameter of the top bit, which is fitting it. So yet again, take your time and just do things very slowly. Right, I'm moving over to a file now to get some uniformity and shape to it. Yet again, go slow, don't take too much off. And keep testing and adjusting. Bring your topper up. It might take quite a few times bringing it up, testing it, and putting it down. Right, I can see I've got a fatter piece just around here, so I'm not going to worry too much about the base of it at the moment. Starting to get a bit tight there. Just on that top bit, a little node there I'm going to take off. And I don't think it'll be far from being ready then. Right, I've just put that on. And I realise I've got about 2 mil of wood that I need to take off the top of the peg. And that's to allow for miscalculation and mismeasurement on my part. Not a big deal. We're not all ardent professionals, but I'm a crafter. I've got a long way to go before I call myself a craftsman. I keep saying that. But because we've been careful and we've got more wood than we actually need there, I can remove it at this stage. With woodwork, always remember you can remove wood. It's extremely difficult to do anything about it if you've taken too much wood off, and that wood needs to be there. So I'm going to gently cut this couple mil off. Right, I've got my peg and it's not looking too bad. I'm not going to worry about too much the aesthetics of it. It's a bit rough, but that will give somewhere for the epoxy to bite. The seat isn't too bad, ironically. And if I get the work and put it on, I can move it around on the shank to get it to seat where there is no visible lines. It looks absolutely flush. I will have to mark this so I know which way. If I mark that green there, green here. Right, I've marked it. That tells me when I'm putting the epoxy on, if those green lines meet up, I'm going to get a clear flush edge. Right, there's the topper, and you can see the joint underneath, and it's pretty flush. I'm not too worried about that. Obviously I'm going to have to work this topper down to the shape I want, but as long as I keep those lines in line, I should get a nice flush finish, as you can see underneath. As you can see, it hasn't come out too bad. Sometimes you have to play about with the seating on the shank to get it to sit properly. But this one hasn't come out too bad. Right then, it's epoxy next. Well, it's getting colder out there. I've just been in and lit the fire and I've just got a coffee. But the wooden down method that we're using now is what I consider more of a traditional method. There's a lot more flapping around, but it does feel nicer to use it, and obviously you don't have to have threaded bar to attach the two, the topper and the stick together. And it does come with the advantage that you don't have any issues of a sidewalls being pushed out or corrosion from the metal, which then breaks free from the epoxy. So there are advantages with it. The disadvantages are the time, and obviously you've got to be a little bit more precise with the joints, and we're making the peg so that everything kind of fits together better. The advantages of the threaded bar method is quite simply speed, easiness, and it is a quite, well, like I said, no mess, no fussing, no joints, no trying to get a dowel to fit and everything like that. You just drill the hole to the size of the threaded bar, you put epoxy around it, you join the two together, and off you go. The problems are sometimes, like I was just saying, if you ever do get corrosion on those on that threaded bar, it can break free from the epoxy. And it's been said that if you haven't really got enough meat on that internal bit of the stick, it has been known to push out the side wall of the stick if there's too much give. But I haven't really come across that in my time crafting sticks, although I did come across one I was given to restore where the actual threaded bar had rusted and it just basically broke free from the epoxy inside. And I do have that way back when on my channel in the back catalogue. What we're going to do now is we're going to score an air hole in that peg so that we can allow all the excess air and product to flow out when I push the topper on. If you don't, you'll just end up sitting there pushing and pushing. It's not going to go anywhere. It's just going to diesel, because quite simply you will need somewhere to vent off that excess air and product inside the hole. But you'll see that in a moment. So I'm going to finish my coffee. That's enough waffling, and we'll crack right back into this. I want to get it done. I want to close the workshop down and get inside by that fire I've just lit. Right then, all I'm doing is getting a knife edge and I'm scoring a channel right along it. Just trying to do a big channel. I'm not going too deep. And I'm just scoring the channel along here. Right, you can see that channel I've scored. It's not overly deep, but it's deep enough for when I push the topper on, as it goes down over, that will allow some air and product to escape out at the bottom till it fully meets the line at the bottom. That's all you're trying to do, just provide a means for air and excess product to escape. Right then guys, I've got a skirt, a dog poo bag basically to protect the stick from, or basically all my workshop from any overflow. I'm going to mix up a 2-part epoxy thoroughly, and I'll drape a load of it around the peg. I'll fill the hole, not completely full, but to what experience tells me it will be enough for it to completely seal it around the peg and have a little bit come out the bottom to overflow. I don't want to take gushing rivers of it, because I'm just wasting epoxy and creating a mess for myself. But I still need enough of it to be in there to create a firm grip on the topper to the shank. So I'm here filming on my own, and this is possibly the best I'm going to be able to do to show you, but you'll get an eye for what I'm actually doing. So yeah, without any further ado, let me crack on. That's mixed pretty well. Right, let's start. I'll do the peg first. I'm going to be quite generous because I want it to take up all the voids. Working it down over. Like that. Get some on the base. There. From behind. I'll just let it overflow a bit. Yet again, not having so much that you're making a huge mess. And from here, let's put some in here. What I want to do is put some on the outside here to help take up some of the voids as well. Right, let's line the marks up. Right, there we go. You can hear it blowing air out. some of this excess off. Hips that one up. Right, it's getting dark in here, as you can see by the window over there. So I've just got a torch on the situation, which is giving it kind of a bit of a glow. But you can see we've got a nice seal, a nice joint there. And we have resin that has taken it all up. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes this episode on how to do a peg for a topper. And I hope it was of some value and worth to somebody. I'm a crafter, a small-time crafter, and this is how I go about doing it. There may be more professional people that have a better way of showing you, but this is just how I'm doing it, and it does seem to work. I only do a handful every few weeks, so it's not something that is a mainstay of my crafting workshop. Mine is mostly single piece items, but it's good to have these skills under your belt because it allows you to then widen what you do with your hiking sticks or sticks in general. And if you're at that point where you're making one piece hiking sticks and you're comfortable with what you're doing with them, and you've got that, well, that kind of like burning desire to perhaps branch out and do other things in relation to hiking sticks or sticks in general, this isn't a bad place to start learning to do a peg. And you will get them wrong, and you will get bad joints, bad seals and things like that, but it's all a learning curve, and it's part of the journey of stick making. So yeah, all that's left for me to say really is take care, stay safe, and I hope to catch you guys on the trail.